Hello everyone, welcome to the HR Success Talk. We are a community which serves for HR professionals and people who are interested to know what's going on in the human resources world in India. Um, as you know that we are coming up with an online assessment on POSH, which is prevention of sexual harassment, and how it's going to impact the workplace and the safety of women in India. We are doing this initiative with our knowledge partner Portouch. So we are thankful for them to coming up with all the material which you guys can go through. This video is also in the same direction where we would like to educate you about this act, so that this will help you in giving your assessment, which is scheduled on 18th, 19th and 20th of January. Just to give you a background, in case you score 50% marks in the assessment, you will be getting a certificate from both ProTouch and HR Success Talk. The link for this online assessment will be active on our Facebook page on 18th January itself, and it will be deactivated on 20th January at the end. So let's begin with our initial and the first video on this education uh, on POSH. So here's what you can expect from the whole series of the videos. In the first video, I'll be covering a couple of things, but you will have subsequent videos which will talk about and cover all the things mentioned here. So we're going to talk about gender sensitivity. We're going to talk about the introduction of the law, the prevention, prohibition, and redressal. We will talk about the best practices and preventive measures. We'll have some scenarios discussions, and we will be doing some mock investigations there. In this series, Dr. Aparna rather, is going to help me in completing the whole series. So there will be a couple of videos you can expect from our side. Moving on, I think what I would like to talk more about is the background, the legal requirement of this act, and I would like to give you kind of historical context of this act, that how this conversation started, and gradually how this end up coming up as an act in India. As you can see that we will be talking about the Bhanwari Devi, we're going to talk about Vishaka Guidelines, and we're going to talk about how this has come in the notification. So let's start with Bhanwari Devi's incidents, and from where this whole conversation started. So basically, Bhanwari Devi is an Indian social worker from Bhateri, Rajasthan, who was gang raped in 1992 by higher caste man, angered by her efforts to prevent child marriage in their family. Her subsequent treatment by the police and the court acquittal of the accused attract widespread nation and international media attention and become a landmark episode in the Indian women's rights movement. So let's go more into the detail of this case and try to understand what has happened. So in 1985, Bhanwari Devi became a Satyan, which is basically in English called friend, a grassroots worker employed as a part of the women development project run by government of Rajasthan. So you can consider that she was a part of the association which was working on women's development. It was a case that resulted in the Indian Supreme Court formulating guidelines to deal with sexual harassment in workplace. But her attacker remained free, cleared of rape, charged by the trial court, while her appeal has been heard just once in the High Court over the past 22 years. In the interim, two of her accused took place on September 22nd, 1992, and with the passage of so much time, Bhanwari Devi, now 56, no longer remembered the days and the days clearly, but the memory of the assault is still vivid in her mind. The men were angry with her for trying to prevent a 9-month-old Gujar girl wedding a few months back earlier. Rajasthan has a huge tradition of child marriage, and thousands of the children, many just months old, are married off every year. Bhanwari Devi herself was a child bride. Her campaign against child marriage was not an attempt to find the feudal mindset, but she was just doing her job. When she went public with her complaint and she was accused of lying, her attacker denied rape and said that there had only been a quarrel. After local newspaper reported Bhanwari Devi's plight and protested by women's activists, the case was handed over to the Central Bureau of Investigation um, in India. The five accused were finally arrested more than a year after the crime and were charged with harassment, assault, and conspiracy and gang rape. Over the course of the trial, judges were inexplicably changed five times, and in 1995, the accused were acquitted of rape. Instead, they were found guilty of lesser offense like assault and conspiracy and were also given just 9 months jail. There were some of the bizarre reasons the judge gave while clearing the accused of the rape. Uh, they said the village head cannot rape. The man of the different caste cannot participate in gang rape. Elder men of 60 70 years cannot rape. A man cannot rape in front of the relative. This was with reference to two of the man and the uncle and the nephew. A man of the higher caste cannot rape a lower caste woman because of the reasons of purity. So Banwari Devi's husband couldn't have quietly watched his wife being gang raped. So these were some of the bizarre reasons which has come as a part of the judgment. The judgment caused immense outrage in India and globally. Massive protests were held in Jaipur with thousands of marching through the city streets demanding justice. The state government, which seems reluctant to appeal against the order, finally challenged it in Rajasthan High Court. But only one hearing has been held in 22 years. The state authority has refused to help her, saying her employer they were not responsible since she was assaulted in her fields. We said the government must take responsibility since the attack on her was because of her work. So a group of activists from Jaipur and Delhi based organization filed a public interest petition in Supreme Court demanding that workplaces must be made safe for women and that it should be the responsibility of the employer to protect women employed at every step. In 1997, the top court come with the Vishaka Guidelines, laying down norms to protect women from sexual harassment in workplace. It was a revolutionary judgment based on the fundamental rights of the woman, and the guidelines later became the basis for a 2013 law passed by the Indian Parliament to prevent sexual harassment of women at workplace. Banwari Devi had no direct role in this law, but she was the one catalyst, and she was the main factor for this to happen. Let's move ahead in 1997 when Vishaka Guidelines came in picture. So the guidelines date back to 1997 when the Supreme Court laid down while passing judgment in a public interest litigation filed by Vishaka, another women's rights group, over the infamous Banwari Devi gang rape case. Hearing the PIL, the apex court took note of the fact that the civil and the penal law of the time did not adequately provide for specific protection of the woman from sexual harassment at workplace and made it legally binding for the employer to observe some guidelines to ensure prevention of the sexual harassment of women. So, prohibition, prevention, and redressal. These were the three key obligations that were imposed on institution as the guidelines defined sexual harassment at workplace. The Supreme Court said every organization must set up an internal complaint committee or ICC to look into the matter of sexual harassment of women at workplace. And that's where we can move to our 2013 notification. In 2013, the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Provision and Redressal Act was passed, broadening the Vishaka Guidelines, defining sexual harassment in clearer terms. The new law laid down the procedure for complaint and inquiry and the action to be taken. The act mandates that every organization with 10 or more employees set up an internal committee of ICC at every office or branch. It defines various aspects of sexual harassment and protects all women working at or even visiting a workplace in any capacity. The act defined as victim any woman of any age, whether employed or not, who alleges to have been subjected to any act of sexual harassment. The Vishaka Guidelines defines as sexual harassment any unwelcome, determined behavior, whether directly or by implication, and these are physical contact and advance, a demand or request for sexual favor, sexually colored remarks, showing pornography, and any other unwelcome physical, verbal, or non-verbal conduct of sexual nature. So I think that's where this was defined more. Let's quickly look at the applicability of this act. This was applicable to the entire India, including Jammu and Kashmir. Every organization, irrespective of its size and whether it has female employees or not, has to comply with POSH. Workplaces are divided into two categories: organized, having 10 employees or more; unorganized, having less than 10 employees. Employers in organized sector needs to constitute internal committees to facilitate aggrieved women to register complaints. Employer falling under unorganized sector, agreed women to approach local committee constituted by the district officer as district level for registered complaint. I think that was a milestone in this act, and I think in India there's awareness which is spreading across all the organizations, and organizations are becoming more and more aware of it. Of course, there is a need as per this law to educate each and every employee in the organization once in a year, to make sure that organizations are doing their bit to educate people in their organization. So I think that's all from the part one of this video. Stay tuned for further videos on this act, and we will be talking about other aspects.